G'day there guys, Marky here, and welcome back to another episode of r/relationship advice. I do hope you're having a wonderful day, and with that said, I want you to sit back, relax, chuck a prawn to the barbie, let's get right into it. Posted by user cglass2274, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my best friend that his girlfriend is disgusting? I, 22 female, have been friends with Danny, 22 male, since high school, and he recently moved in with his current girlfriend Lucy, also 22 female. They had a housewarming party on Friday, and Lucy spent most of the night dancing with her own friends who were very much like her, for example, excitable and extroverted, and dragging Danny away from his conversations with us, his friends, to dance, even though he's more like us, introverted, not party animals. Later, Danny was being quiet, so I asked if he was okay, and he said he was just tired, but he just kept watching Lucy dancing and then said something in her ear the next time she came over, and she just shook her head and laughed at him. After she went back to her friends, I asked if it was bothering him how she was behaving, and he asked me to explain. I mentioned the attention-seeking dancing and the fact that she was wearing something really revealing, even though other guys were at this party. Danny said that it didn't bother him and then sat with a moody face. At the end of the night, Lucy sat down with us and started chatting non-stop about how amazing the party had been. I pointed out jokingly that Danny obviously wasn't enjoying himself since he looked miserable, and Danny told her that I was worried he was jealous because of her outfit. Lucy ruffled his hair, which he hates, and said he was quiet because he loved her outfit so much he couldn't wait for us all to leave so he could drag her to bed. I thought that was completely inappropriate and said to Danny in that case I'd leave if she was just going to be disgusting, and Lucy just laughed at me, so I did leave. Today, Danny has messaged me saying Lucy wants an apology before I'm allowed back to their home, but when I asked if Lucy will apologize for making me uncomfortable, he said no, she doesn't have anything to be sorry about. I was genuinely only worried about my friend, but admit that I could have just left without calling her disgusting. So am I the asshole? Edit to add, to clarify, I didn't say the comment about her clothes directly to Lucy. I asked Danny once and then never mentioned it again. I only asked him because I know in the past he's said anything overly sexual makes him uncomfortable. He's not the kind of guy who makes innuendos or anything. Also, I'm in no way jealous of Lucy. She's the opposite of how I'd want to be, which is fine. People can be who they want. And Danny and I already tried dating years ago, but the spark wasn't there, and it was uncomfortable after we both tried being intimate, and we both agreed we were better as completely platonic friends. I'm just gonna come right out of the gate and say that you're the asshole for this. She did nothing wrong. There is nothing that this woman did wrong, and you choose to hate on her and drag her down. Your explanations for your behavior suck, and I don't think there is any justification besides the fact that you're jealous of her, you don't like this person, you're a toxic person, OP. I think you need to take a good hard look in the mirror and realize that you're in the wrong in this situation. You're the asshole. In the comments, Sardine Sadness says, You're the asshole. Girl, what? I'm sorry, but that's such a hateful way to talk about someone's girlfriend just for having fun. She was literally just minding her business, having a good time, and you had to hate on her for it? Minding her business and having a good time in her own home with her friends. And so much internalized misogyny spilling out of OP. Ick. I wonder if OP is actually a guy and just wrote it as a girl in the hopes that we wouldn't realize that it was incel nonsense. I thought this was 100% an incel guy until I got to the comments. Oh, I thought that it was a guy who had a crush on his friend, and then with the edit it was made clear that it was a girl who had a crush on her friend. OKJob9417 says, You're the asshole. Just say that you want to date Danny and be done with the jealousy. Or admit that she wants to keep him to herself, even if not romantically involved. This sounds like a classic, I don't want him, but I don't want anyone else to have him either scenario. You're the asshole, OP. I had a girl like that for a while. They can really sabotage you, showing more interest when you're taken, less when you're available, giving you just enough to keep you around. Just saying they're only interested as a friend would be fine, that kind of bluntness would be much better, but they keep you in limbo. Wicked Angel Love says, You're the asshole. Your friend literally told you that he wasn't bothered, but you still felt offended. It's giving jealous. and felt compelled to say something despite both of them being fine with it. And if he wasn't fine with it, it still wasn't your business, because if he wanted you to know, he would have told you. You didn't jokingly point it out, you said it because you wanted how you felt to be known. Also, if he wasn't fine with it, it still wasn't her business to handle because it's not her relationship. Actively insulting him by acting like he isn't adult enough to manage his own relationship. He was probably uncomfortable because of OP being so judgmental about his girlfriend. And now on to the update. Okay, I completely accept I was an asshole. I don't know if anyone wants an update since I seem to be Reddit's villain of the week. Before I continue with the updates, I'd just like to clarify. Someone DM'd me saying Danny posted an update that Lucy cheated on him. I don't know if Danny even has a Reddit, and while I haven't been able to find the post myself, I can confirm that's not true. Someone is lying to cause further issues. Anyway, I texted Danny and asked if I could sit down with him and Lucy to talk. They agreed and we met up for coffee. I emphatically apologized to Lucy and then to Danny. We spoke in detail about how in the past, Danny has been similar to me in his attitude towards sex and PDA, etc., not just our awkward high school fling, but every relationship he's had since, and how he used to be insecure when his ex-girlfriends did anything that made him jealous. Over the years, I've become really protective of him because he got hurt a lot. Danny explained that Lucy has brought him out of his shell and he's much more outgoing now, the opposite of how our friendship group has just kind of always been. But his social battery does die a lot quicker than hers, which she is understanding of. I haven't seen much of Danny since he and Lucy began dating in March last year. Not because of Lucy, but we've all been busy with college and jobs. We still text all the time, and he's the same as always in that regard. So their party was my first look at the new Danny, and I think I obviously didn't cope well with the changes, since I hadn't been around to see it happen gradually, so to me it seemed sudden. I worried that Danny was unhappy because not long ago, he would have been miserable and jealous at a party like that, and in that kind of a relationship. I think throughout the night I convinced myself Lucy was hurting him and wound myself up in self-righteousness, so by the end of the night when Lucy made her comment, I thought she was just trying to antagonize me, and I wrongly snapped. To cut a long story short, Danny and I are fine, Danny and Lucy are fine, and Lucy and I are going to hang out to get to know each other better. She does seem really nice, and I feel horrible for ending her party on such a bad note. In the comments, Rudy Nowhere says, "You did well to meet with them. By your description of the conversation, you still came off as trying to rationalize your rudeness, but most of us do that, I suppose. You're young yet, and you're in love with Danny. Things will be strained until you can see that, then they'll be painful." Gator Sweet replies, "Absolutely. A few things are better, but, quote, I obviously didn't cope well with the change since I hadn't been around to see it happen gradually, so to me it seemed sudden, end quote. Unless the new Danny is suddenly spouting off racist crap or mainlining heroin, can you imagine being so offended and protective of a friend changing? Quote, I worried Danny was unhappy because not long ago, he would have been miserable and jealous at a party like that, and in that kind of relationship, end quote. She is still doing the whole, I know Danny better than anyone else bullshit. But how much can you grow up in 5 days? So, shrug. Especially when the friend changing is just him becoming more secure in relationships and feeling more comfortable and outgoing in public. There were no concerning changes. To play devil's advocate here, I could see OP potentially being afraid of losing her friend since he's changed. Even if it's changed for the better or just a neutral change, and that could cause the hostile reaction and protectiveness. Doesn't make it right, but it sort of gives more insights. Gator Sweet replies, I hear that. I have a lifelong friend that got married while I was, and it was hard for her to navigate at first, but we all figured it out without her lashing out at me. But again, OP is 22 years old, so I don't know. HHHHHD5 says, your fourth paragraph sounds like you're still not really getting it. You're making rationalizations for why you acted a certain way instead of fully taking accountability for your actions. This feels a lot like an I'm sorry, but apology, where you've tried to spin things around so your actions make you now look like a good guy. You are making excuses for your behavior and hiding behind the guise of concern. I don't know if you realize this, but you can still be protective of your friends without full-on insulting their partner. You still have a long way to go in this whole thing. Dawnseeker99 replies, I feel like there can be a reason you do something and still know that it's wrong. I think she accepts that her reaction was wrong and sought out how to rectify it, but identifying why we do these sorts of things, such as her saying she thinks she did it because she was overprotective of him from past experiences, but that she hadn't seen him act like this ever before. We can't learn from our mistakes if we don't acknowledge where the mistake came from, and people having a go at her for it won't make anything better. Also, it really depends on the friend and the partner in regards to how you protect them. If this has been how she's had to look out for him in the past, it's reasonable to assume to do the same thing again. Sure, maybe she had more of a predisposition to do it than seems rational, but feelings, even regards to friendships, which she claims this to be, are irrational. Reasoning Fella replies to that, the idea that trying to understand and explain your actions is the same as justifying them is really pervasive. When I was a little kid, I had a teacher who would constantly scold me for making excuses. I was genuinely trying to process why I had such serious difficulty with certain tasks versus others, but all she wanted to hear was, I'm a lazy little shit and I didn't do my homework because I'm morally corrupt. I think people really want to make reasons as excuses, and I'm not sure why. Maybe, I'm not sure, people just want to vilify someone to justify their initial judgment of the situation. I think OP's explanation is perfectly reasonable. She genuinely thought that she was trying to help her friend who she has seen hurt in the past. That was the thought process. Not only was she wrong, she handled it badly. Saying, this is what I was thinking when I did that stupid thing, is fine if what comes before it and after it is, I wish I hadn't done that stupid thing and I was wrong. If my friend did something like this to me and my partner, I'd like to know why. Intentions do matter to me. What do you guys think about this one? Do you think that OP deserves these further attacks? I see it as though she's not trying to justify anything, she's just explaining her rationale, but I don't know, I think she recognizes that what she did was wrong, and she's apologizing to her friends, she's also apologizing to Reddit. I feel as though this is a situation in which we do need to forgive OP for their actions. I think a lot of people are assuming and jumping on the assumption bandwagon that OP hasn't learned from her mistakes and will continue to do damage in the future. In my perspective, I'd like to think that she has learnt her lesson and things will improve from here. But what do you guys think? I'd love to know down in the comments below. Our next post is by user BigCustomer1270, titled, Am I the asshole for telling a school nurse I don't need a second opinion from an American doctor for a diagnosis made in Spain? I, 17 female, moved from Spain to the US with my parents a year ago. I have a very rare and severe neurological condition, which is itself a subtype of a more common and less debilitating condition. When I say rare, I mean 0.0001% occurrence rate. I was diagnosed in Spain a year ago before we moved. I spent 2 weeks in the hospital, they ran all the tests possible, even experimental ones. I eventually saw a specialist who is extremely well known in his field. He made the diagnosis and gave me a prescription. I went from 2 episodes a day to less than 1 a month. Now for the issue. A week ago, a new head nurse was hired at my high school. As an at-risk student, she asked to meet me. When I started describing my situation, she interrupted me saying, I know name of the more common condition, cut it short. Since it's on a whole other level in terms of gravity and rarity, I still went ahead and described it. She interrupted me again and said, This diagnosis is very unusual. Are you sure about it? I know a very good doctor. You're sure you don't want to have a second opinion from an American doctor? She stressed American. I told her that all the tests were ran a year ago, the diagnosis fits perfectly, and the medication is working. I finally said that Spanish doctors are just as competent as American ones. I was calm, but it showed that I thought she considered Spain as a third world country. She rolled her eyes and said that I didn't need to get defensive. I told my parents when I went home. My dad, American, got on her side. I said he was free to spend dozens of thousands of dollars, what the whole process would have cost in the US, for the same diagnosis and to get me under opioids. He said I was overreacting and that I didn't need to be an asshole about it. but my mum, who is Spanish, understands my reaction given how mentally taxing all of this is. I haven't heard back from the nurse, but I'm wondering if I overreacted. Edit. To address a general concern, I'm not on opioids. What I meant by at risk is basically just special needs. There's just a risk that episodes may happen when I'm at school, and there's a protocol in my medical file that tells the school staff, when an episode occurs, don't do anything, wait for it to go away, quite literally. I'm just gonna go with not the asshole for this one, plain and simple. I think your dad is being an asshole for siding with this nurse, and I think this nurse is a bit unhinged. Unhinged in a way that she's like, you're young, so you literally don't know anything about what's going on here. Yes, that is an assumption about her, but it's clear through her actions that she doesn't trust OP at all, with a diagnosis that is very personal, and I would venture to say, life-threateningly important to OP. If both her and OP's father are offended by OP being defensive, then good. I'd rather be defensive than waste money and time and potentially put myself at risk of dying for people not believing me about, a certain condition. Go cry more, you two, not the asshole OP. In the comments, Sam W says, a specialist in the field diagnosed your condition and prescribed medication which effectively treats it. Your school nurse believes that she knows better than a specialist. I think it's clear that she is not as qualified as she assumes herself to be, and her suggesting you got defensive was projection. It's always important to maintain a firm and direct approach when discussing a medical issue with a new practitioner. Given how often misdiagnoses can lead to severe complications, she should know better, not the asshole. Schneef Queen says, people weaponize defensiveness, but who the hell wouldn't get defensive in the face of someone belittling them and their home country, dismissing their medical diagnosis based on literally zero information, and implying they don't know their own health history and needs? Not the asshole. Arwen's Rose replies, I have narcolepsy type 2, and it took 17 years to diagnose. Even the threat of having to change doctors has me defensive and near hysteria due to how much hell I went through trying to get a diagnosis. And I feel that's a legitimate response for just the threat. The idea of someone questioning like how they did with OP? F no, every right to be defensive. And I'm from the US, and I know our medical care here is crap on a cracker. Just because I'm from the US doesn't mean I drink the US is the best in all things Kool-Aid. OP, guard your health, and screw the nurse for questioning a specialist. Nurse is an asshole, but so is Dad, as he seems to be a partaker of the US is best Kool-Aid. Why do I get the feeling that Dad had little to do with OP's medical care and diagnosis, but that Mum had to take her to appointments, deal with care of her episodes, etc.? And now, onto the update. Hi all. First, thanks for all the support. Based on your replies, I went to a teacher I trust and she told me that I should report it. I met with the principal, my parents, and the head nurse on Thursday. I'm glad I reported it because the nurse started off by saying that she still doubted the diagnosis and was reconsidering the process in case of an episode. I don't have a formal second opinion/diagnosis per se, but a neurologist here renews my prescription. The original documents were translated for the transfer of care process, so I brought them, even if they're already in my school medical file, to show the principal, along with a letter from the American neurologist, which I read out loud. I then thanked the nurse for her concern, but asked what it was based on. She was pissed and asked why I didn't tell her about the American diagnosis. I said that it wasn't one. The diagnosis was made in Spain. She asked the principal if the insurance were even okay with a diagnosis coming from there. She added that she doubted they were able to conduct all the tests. So I asked her which ones they had missed, to which she said, I don't know, I'm not a specialist. I couldn't find a good comeback on the spot, but my mum laughed, and I think that was good enough. The principal ended the meeting and sent us an email on Friday saying that the process would remain the same. My dad hasn't formally apologized, but he did say that she overstepped her qualifications. I'm glad I went ahead and reported it. I don't know what would have happened if I hadn't. Thanks again for all the support, and good luck to everyone out there struggling with the same issues. Stay safe. In the comments, Jesse Colt says, congratulations for advocating for yourself. You did a very good thing. Unfortunately, far too many people from the USA have clouded judgments and biases with the sheer amount of brainwashing that happens being pushed on them regarding how the USA is the best country in the world with the best medical system and doctors, etc. And/or there's some racism and xenophobia mixed in with the whole "from there" bit. Spain equals Mexico equals illegal immigrant equals guy doing yard work. How could you trust a guy who cuts the lawn to diagnose a serious medical condition? Sarcasm, by the way. That's about what I figured the nurse's thought process was too. She's racist against Mexicans. Spain speaks Spanish, therefore Mexican. Also sarcasm. I thurs when I pee says, the typical American ignorance and narcissism. They all think they are the best at everything while not realizing they live in a third world country. I recently saw an Am I the Arsehole post about illegal child marriage. The girl was 17 years old and occurred in the US. I commented on that post to report to the police and get relatives on their side. One of the Redditors said, US didn't ban child marriage as a whole country, only in 5 states they banned it. I felt a bit better about not being born in the US. Add the medical bills, plus gun laws, plus abortion laws, plus whatever else is going on there, etc. There has been over 200,000 child marriages in the US over the last 2 decades or so. The creepy thing is that marriage removes the age of consent, so you can marry a 12-year-old and that makes them legal. Some states have no minimum age for marriage, and in some, parental consent is enough. It's absolutely terrifying. The youngest brides were 8 to 9 years old. It's disgusting, and the reason that the government refuses to do anything about it is because they don't want to step on the toes of the religions that would be affected by this. What's more important, allowing a few religious people the option to marry a child, or protecting kids from predators? Yeah, I'm just gonna stop that one there. This is getting a bit crazy for me. Topics like this get beaten to death like a dead horse, buried 6 feet deep, brought up again, reincarnated, and beaten to death again. As much as I would love to continue down that rabbit hole, I'm not going to continue currently. If you guys have opinions on that, I'd love to know down in the comments below. What are your thoughts on the story that I've just read? Let me know.